Hello, everyone, and welcome back to what is already going to be our closing keynote of the day. I really cannot believe how fast this first day of Automation Days Asia went by. But as usual, we are saving the best for last. And I have the incredible honor to introduce our last keynote speaker for today, which is Pedro Martins, who is the head of AI and at IA Delivery Europe at AIC.ai. He's going to talk today around introducing the Intelligent Automation 2.0, which is about autonomous intelligent automation framework. But let's talk a little bit around our speaker. Pedro Martins is an accomplished leader in business transformation operations with a deep expertise in artificial intelligence, hyperautomation, and telecommunications. He has a notable history of leading global services and network operations, managing large-scale projects with over 500 personnel across diverse markets like West Central Europe and Latin America. His work has significantly contributed to key digital transformation initiatives focusing on hyperautomation and AI. Pedro holds a telecom and computer science engineering degree from ISTCE with merit recognition and a specialization in machine learning from Stanford University. Additionally, Pedro has an MBA and various certifications in leadership, design thinking, and Lean Six Sigma. Can start to recognize why I'm so excited to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Pedro, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us here today, and the floor is yours. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure for me to be with this magnificent board of speakers and also attendees, because I had a look. So we have a quite magnificent audience. And it's, of course, a pleasure for me to share something, some of my knowledge to the people and brainstorm about this amazing journey that we are facing right now in terms of technology. Yeah, so it's really a pleasure for me to be here. Yeah. So let me start with the presentation and making us think a little bit in the context that we are living nowadays. So normally when I'm talking to the people, and especially when I'm talking with companies, what I used to say is that the only constant that we have along the years of our history is that the only constant is the change. And now, specifically now in these last years and decades, we are living in an era that we are changing quite fast. And this is changing in all the aspects. And we know that we live in a systematic, let's say, world. Yeah, so we have a lot of changes in the world in terms of geopolitics, and this will affect the market, the economy. And these, in last instance, will also influentiate, let's say, the enterprise. And as most part of us know, and know the concept of learning organization, more and more, the learning organizations concept, it's something that we need to boost inside our company and try to change fast and faster in these last moments of our history, right? So this is something that we need really to focus, to learn and adapt quite fast in order to be adaptive to the environment that we are living. So if we look from a logic perspective and from technology perspective, we are changing from an environment that we were quite focused on bringing technology to bring intelligence to our business. And now more and more, we start to think in a way to be faster. And this makes the company start to think in autonomy. So this is the reason why we are changing from a paradox of intelligence to autonomy. And this is basically one of the reasons why we have so much interest now with AI, because generative AI, in fact, brought a new, let's say, a new space in terms of artificial intelligence, new capabilities. And people start to think that the evolution of these models can bring us to the level of autonomy, or start to think in autonomous systems inside our companies in order that we do not depend only on people, but our systems can also learn and adapt quite fast. So this is, let's say, the reason why it's so important that not really right now, but it's important for us to prepare us for this change of technology focus on intelligence, but also to think in technology linked with autonomy. So because of that, today I will speak a little bit about the history and the road from what we saw in terms of automation and the big boost in terms of automation with RPA technology until the moment that we will arrive of what we call autonomous intelligent automation, that it's based in the concept of autonomous agents. I would like right now just to make, a special reference that we are not yet on autonomous agents from business process automation perspective, because in fact, autonomous agents already exists in some infrastructure automation. But it's important to realize that we are not yet in the stage of autonomous agents, but we are already starting with some agentic solutions that we saw in several presentations today here. But there is an evolution that we are doing, a path that we are doing in terms of automation technology. And that's the reason why we will talk a little bit about these four main phases of evolution. And then I will give, let's say, a perspective of what it's autonomous agent architecture, and talk a little bit about what it's the multi-agent system. Just generic concepts, because it's a topic that we can be here for one day talking about it. But I will give just few concepts in terms of multi-agent systems. And then I will talk a little bit about what is the current and the future outlook for autonomous automation. So let's start with the four main phases of evolution. So if we look from a progression perspective, we started, and the companies were starting heavily with RPA between 2009, 2010. But in fact, what I can tell you is that with my experience and with previous experience in beginnings of 2005, we were already working with some RPA technology. And this was, let's say, a big boost for the companies, because we were able to pick up some repetitive tasks that we were having people executing, and we were able to automatize this type of process. This was good not only for the company, but I can tell you that it was also good for the people to be redirected to more value tasks inside the company, and leave it the robots or the bots doing these repetitive tasks that we consider that some of them had no value for the company itself, right? Then there was a moment that we started to talk about intelligent automation. And I will give you a little bit the perspective of intelligent automation, just to make a quick review, because I think it's an important aspect or an important concept that we look into it in order to understand then what will be, let's say, the autonomous intelligent automation capability framework. So in intelligent automation, and with the evolution of some technologies like maturity on machine learning, NLP, and also with a big evolution in terms of computer vision, we were able, let's say, to increase the capabilities of the systems and try to mimic more effectively the capabilities of the humans. Then we started to see that on top of intelligent automation and with the evolution of large language models, we were able to see that some of the capabilities could be improved, especially in terms of language, text understanding, big data understanding. So LLMs were giving a boost into the intelligent automation framework. And then we started to see that on top of generative AI boosted intelligent automation, we started to see this phase that we are right now, that it's the agentic AI. And I'm saying agentic intelligent automation because in the reality, and picking up some of the examples that you saw during the sessions today, it is possible to make a bot with some level of autonomy to select different methods of interactions with the system. That I can tell you that it's not only via API, that it's the most frequent example that we saw during the sessions today, like interacting with the Google Calendar and so on. But in fact, it's also possible, let's say, to interact with other kind of interfaces, like methods that we use in intelligent automation, like, for example, RPA, like, for example, the traditional AI models, like, for example, predictive AI and so on. So this is where we start with the agentic AI. Then there is a step ahead that we are a little bit far away, but it's important that we start to understand where is the direction. That will give more capabilities on this agentic framework, because what we'll do is create more cognitive power in order to make these agents take decisions in a more autonomous way. But we will go through that when I speak about autonomous intelligent automation framework, and we will have a little bit the perspective of what it's expected for the future. Now, reminding a little bit what was, let's say, the intelligent automation framework. So the intelligent automation framework, as I was telling you, was a convergence of several technologies that were used in order to make workflows, in this case, rule-based workflows or static workflows. And basically, we can divide the technologies that compose the intelligent automation in four main categories that basically represent the capabilities of the humans. So we have the vision, where we have, let's say, technologies related with optical character recognition and ICR, biometrics, and so on. Then we have the part of execution, where we had on that time RPA and also other workflow systems. Then we had the part of language, that we had already in that time some intelligent chatbots. We had also sentiment analysis based on ML algorithms. And then we have the think and learn. The think and learn that we have the data visualization, the part of analytics, machine learning, and so on. So on that time, that it was more or less between 2010 and 2015, we were starting, let's say, to have this convergence of technologies and start to give more power to these workflow automations that we were doing with RPA. So if we pick up an example of a process, and in this case, I pick up the example of a loan approval process in a bank, right? So to simplify, I just reduce a lot let's say, the process itself, just to give us a perspective that during a process inside the company, there is several capabilities that are required. In this case, we have the vision for document recognition and processing. We have think and learn for risk assessment and decision making. We have the part of execute, that it's all the interactions that we have with the CRM and RRP systems updates. And then we have the part of the language for customer communication. So in the first stage, when we start with RPA, basically RPA was good for the part of execute, where we have systematic and very low-level tasks that were executed by operators. And we were using RPA, let's say, to automatize this part of the execution. With the evolution to intelligent automation, basically we were able to bring the other technologies and start to automatize other capabilities of the humans. Like, for example, in vision. In vision, we use computer vision to make the document recognition and processing for think and learn, especially for risk assessment and decision making. We use some of algorithms for machine learning. And then for the part of the language and for some customer interaction, we were using what we call NLPs. That NLPs were very basic on that time, most of them rule based, but it was on that time an effective solution to start the first steps in the automation of the communication with our customers. So this was, let's say, the first stage. Then I will talk already about the intelligent automation 2.0, so the vision for the future, because it's important to understand what was, let's say, the big limitation in terms of intelligent automation 1.0. One of the things that it was, one of the big constraints was that most part of the process were designed and they were quite static in terms of evolution. So our kind of infrastructure that requires a lot of operations on top and also a lot of maintenance. And in fact, as probably most part of the developers that we have here in the audience know, that, for example, RPA is a technology itself that involves a high level of TCO, especially because it requires a high level of cost in terms of operation and maintenance, because every single change that we have, it requires a change in the code and so on, right? So this intelligent automation 2.0, one of the things that will bring to the enterprise ecosystem, is to bring dynamic workflows inside the company, specifically to change, let's say, to adapt the company and to adapt the process, considering the changes of the environment of the company, because they are a reflection of the changes that we are having outside the company, right? So one of the things that you will see in this diagram is that we have always people in the center of all the technology. But on top of the people, we have also the autonomous goals achievement, or the autonomous agents, that will give a level of autonomy to these systems. And we can describe several concepts inside this, let's say, capability group that will be important for the future. One of the things is goal-oriented automation, that we will talk a little bit in the next slides. Dynamic workflows, as I was mentioning to you, and also the level of autonomy that it's a very important parameter, that there are several aspects that we need to look, and I will give just a short view about it. And then one important factor, because it will help on this adaptation and will help also on understanding what are the best road to go in terms of process, it's the multi-agent systems that will also give a capability of improved reflection and improved decision making inside all the process. Last but not least, there was also, let's say, and we need to admit that the part of transformers that are linked with what we call large language models were also improving some of the capabilities that were already existing in the intelligent automation 1.0. For example, in the language, we were able to group a lot of capabilities that we had in the past and group in one single technology, that is LLM, because it's possible with LLMs to make interpretation of documentation. So it gives also a little bit the capability of the vision inside the overall framework. So, and we improve a lot in terms of, let's say, communication and understanding between us and the humans, right? Then also in the think and learning, we had also improvements because we increased, let's say, the capabilities of reasoning, and also we give a big boost in terms of reinforcement learning, because what we will see is that, okay, on top of the traditional methods for reinforcement learning, the LLMs and the transformers were giving, especially when we are communicating in terms of, using natural language, it gives also a good power boost in terms of reinforcement learning. So this is just for you to have an initial understanding of what it's the intelligent automation 2.0, and that it's a total framework that will converge in an autonomous way all the technologies that we have from intelligent automation framework. So now, looking a little bit from an evolution perspective and picking up what was intelligent automation and what it's the change for agentic AI. So on agentic intelligent automation, as we could see, there is an improvement in terms of vision, as I was mentioning to you, because it's possible to use in the part of document recognition and processing, especially with the usage of multimodals. It's also possible to improve some of the tasks that we do in terms of document processing and recognition, on top of computer vision, because there are specific use cases that we still need computer vision, and it's always important to have computer vision. But Gen AI, in fact, was improving, let's say, the capabilities of vision. Then it's also important that we understand that customer communication was having a high boost in terms of quality. And with generative AI, the flow of the communication was very high improved. And what is also possible to do with generative AI in this framework, as we saw in previous examples, we saw that it's possible via algorithms of chain of thought and also using tools. It's possible to make agents to have partial autonomy and design dynamic workflows inside a communication flow. For example, you can have a customer that will, send you new data, and you will require a new risk assessment. So it's possible for an agent to trigger immediately after the reception of that data to start immediately, let's say, the connection with the risk assessment or with document recognition and processing. So we are starting to see that on top of that rule-based workflow or static workflow, we are having some level of degree of autonomy, and we are also having a certain degree of dynamic workflows, right? But it's important to understand that, and it's something that we will talk in the next slide, there is some misconceptions that sometimes we read in the social communities and so on, is that we are not yet on autonomous agents era. So at this stage, what we have is agentic intelligent automation. Some of the people call it agentic process automation, APA, but this is not autonomous agents. Autonomous agents are a little bit more complex. So let's imagine how we work, how we humans work with our environment. So if we look for humans, we have access to the world, and in our body we have, we receive information from the world via vision, via receiving verbal information, so using our sensors, right? And then we based on that information, we make a kind of rational thinking, and we do some actions in the world. So this is the same thing that we will see in autonomous agents. So they will have what we call the level of sensors, and these can be done using computer vision technology. And we have also the part of the effectors that can be done, if we use the same terminology that we are using from previous eras. We can use, for example, process that you have already defined in a company, RPA, to make these effectors in the environment of the company. Of course, all of these needs to be somehow organized, and we need to have a kind of brain to all this ecosystem. And that's the reason why in this architecture, we will have what we call the level of autonomy, that I will speak a little bit about it and tell you a little bit what are the parameters that needs to be focused in this level of autonomy. There is the part also of the communication, because we will have one single agent that could communicate with other systems and also with other agents. So there is the level of communication. And then there is all the rationale behind that we divide in 4 categories. One, it's the perception. So based on the information that we collect from the sensors, how we can get insights from this information. We have the part of reasoning, that it's something that we often see in some technical documents, how we can empower the part of reasoning. We have also the part of goal-oriented. So try to understand from one specific objective how we can divide in subtasks and how we can arrive to the goal. And then there is the part of the learning. So there is, let's say, a workflow that will give the capability to the agent to learn with the evolution and with the interaction with the environment. So this could seem a little bit complex, but what we will see is that this is something that it's being studied for a long period of time. So it's not something new, but I will not answer already to all the questions here, because I will leave it to a next slide where we will go a little bit deeper on these autonomous agent architecture. Yeah? Now, I would like to launch a question to the pool, that also to understand what is the idea of the audience in terms of autonomous agents. So the question that I have is, when do you think that the concept of autonomous agents is originated? Yeah. So I would.
Good. Let me launch the poll for you, Pedro. It's coming up on the screen right now. So for everyone, the question should be coming up.
Thank you.
And I see the votes pouring in.
So
give it a few more seconds.
Thank you.
Good, and let me close the poll. It's quite a surprising result. We have 27% that says answer 1 after 2010. 18% says between 2000 and 2010, and 55% says between 1950 and 2000.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I will not give, let's say, the answer right now. I will let in the next slides to answer this question. So what is autonomous agent architecture with more detail? So as I was mentioning you, so the environment, it's all the dynamic physical or virtual context where the agents operate. And let's try to make an analogy specifically with the business process automation. So in this case, the environment will be and simplifying a little bit, but it will be all the software and all the data that you have in your company, right? So all the interactions that you do in a software and the data stored, it will be the environment of these autonomous agents, specifically for the industrial sector. There could be also other level of environment. For example, the machinery that you have in the company. So we can have sensors that will check the environment. So there could be other level of information that we could build up the environment. But in this case, let's simplify and let's consider only the part of software and the data that you have in your company. So the sensors will capture these raw data that can be, images, text, environmental inputs, and will make and prepare that information for the other layers, the perception, reasoning, goal-oriented, and learning. Some of the technologies that we could see here, it's like, for example, IoT devices, computer vision, and natural language processing. In terms of effectors, it will be everything or all the actions that will affect the environment. So this will enable the agents, let's say, to interact with the environment via commands or via physical actions, right? And here we can see technologies like robotics, RPA, and APIs, and some of them we are already seeing in the agentic systems that we have nowadays in place. Perception. It will convert all the sensor data into actionable insights. And here, it's important to understand that we will need not only generative AI, but we will need also machine learning and also an improvement on the multimodality that we have nowadays in the models that are in place. There is the part of reasoning, and in the part of the reasoning, there is a lot of concepts that are being improved and studied at this stage. We have improvements of deep learning, improvements on techniques to make chain of thought, knowledge graphs, decision trees, mechanisms of consensus. So it's a high level of research at this stage in this area in terms of reasoning, how we can improve the reasoning of the systems. Then we have the goal-oriented behavior, and it's important to mention here that the BPM part, it's not lost, because for some of the processes that we have inside the company, we will still need to have a static and a predefined process in order to achieve a certain goal. So BPM tools will continue to exist. What we will have here, it's the part of multi-agent systems that, based on several specialities, we will be able to interact between agents and start to make the definition of the planning of a certain task in a more feasible way. Learning. In the part of learning, it's important to understand that there is, it's where we see the capability of learning with the experience in the environment. And here we can have, let's say, technologies like reinforcement learning, AutoML, and decision trees, also for this part of learning. Then we have the level of autonomy. And in the level of autonomy, we have everything that will limit the agents in terms of freedom to interact with the environment. And here we can see that there are a lot of research areas like explainable AI, guardrails that it's already used. And we used, for example, in my company, we used already guardrails in order to defend a lot of agentic systems that we have implemented. We have override mechanisms. Override mechanisms, it's to, in the future, to stop completely, that say, the reaction of the agents in the environment. And then there is always the techniques of human in the loop that will be always necessary, even when we talk about autonomous agents. Then communication, it will be what will facilitate the interaction between other agents, but not only with agents, but also with other systems. And these we can have here the LLMs, because in fact, we can see that generative AI, it's very good in terms of communication, and it will be used in the future for sure in communication between systems. We continue to have the multi-agent systems and the integration of platforms. So this is a very high-level architecture of what we call autonomous agents. And it's important that we correct some of the misconceptions that we have about autonomous agents. And this is really important that we take in mind, and I will use also this opportunity to answer the question of the pool. So, autonomous agents, it's not a new concept, right? So, autonomous agents, the research of autonomous agents already start in 1950. Yeah, we have people like Alan Turing. So Alan Turing was the first person that defined, okay, what is an intelligent agent and how he interacts with the environment. So he was the first one defining what is intelligent agents from a concept perspective. And then there were several studies on autonomous agents architectures. Since then, we have a special period during 1990 that there were some researchers doing a lot of research on this area, especially in terms of consensus mechanisms and so on. So it's something that already starts a few years ago. The question here is that generative AI was boosting the technology because, in fact, transformers and large language models were giving some capabilities to these autonomous agents that were not possible before. So we are talking now more about agents and autonomous agents, but it's not something that was originated by ChatGPT or LLMs. It was, in fact, a concept that was already in place for a long period of time. Another misconception that we need to take in mind is that, based on the description that I did very fast in terms of architecture, is that the autonomous agents are not built exclusively using LLMs, okay? So we now see, because once again, we see that generative AI has a good capability in terms of communication, interaction, and reasoning, but there are some capabilities that the large language model that don't have right now that requires to be integrated with other technologies in order to be, let's say, fully autonomous. And if you saw and if you research the opinion of some experts, you will see that most part of them say that AGI will not be achievable only using large language model, but needs to be a composition of technologies. Then the other two aspects that it's important to also correct the misconception, it's that autonomous agents are not one size fits all, because one of the things that we will see is that the vertical market is also increasing, and it's important to understand that we will need to have autonomous agents specialized in specific areas or in specific verticals. And last but not least, autonomous does not mean independent from humans. We will continue to have human in the loop in all the system in order to guarantee that the flow of the reactions are aligned with human perspective. So now very quickly, because we are running against the time. So multi-agent systems, it's important to understand that we have several kinds of architecture. We can have centralized, decentralized, hybrid, or layered architecture. And we can also have different kinds of agents. We can have homogeneous and heterogeneous agents. Basically, what it means is that we can have, in a multi-agent system, we can have a lot of agents doing the same thing and with the same capability, or we can have agents or autonomous agents that are specialized in a certain area. And this is what we see based on last experience that we are doing, and we see also other companies doing, is that the heterogeneous agents are, let's say, better in terms of performance, because you will need to have specialized agents in each task. And the layer architecture is also giving good results, because in the end, what we see is that the layer architecture simulates a little bit how the organization is composed right now. So we will have agents responsible for example, strategic definition, for task execution, and we will have, specific agents that are able to interact with a certain range of applications, and another one with other kind of applications. So this is very fast what it's some of the concepts of multi-agent systems and what we see in terms of trend, in terms of usage of multi-agent systems. So to conclude, in terms of autonomous agents, and it's important to emphasize once again that we are not yet in that stage of autonomous agents, but what we are seeing is that there is a big explosion in terms of agentic workflows or agentic process automation. And if we look to last research, we see that, for example, the last one that was launched by LangChain, we can see that, there is agents being used in 51% of the companies that they make the question. That, this doesn't mean that they are using, let's say, the full capability of an agentic system. Most part of them are using, for example, for summarization, for research, to collect information inside the company. But nevertheless, it's already a first step in terms of agentic solutions. What it's important here to take out is that companies are trying agent solutions. They are starting to do research on this area, and this is the most important thing, right? What we see in terms of key use cases, it's the research summarization, also used in terms of personal productivity and customer service. What I can tell you is that, in fact, these agentic solutions are being quite used in customer experience. And in fact, we have already some agents already in production that are more than collecting information from a database or from the system, are really interacting with systems. Especially in medium companies, we see that they are already giving permissions in terms of read and write with the system. Some of them are more, let's say, secure, and they are giving only abilities of reading. But the complexity of these agents creation are increasing more and more, considering the evolution of the technology itself. In terms of investment boom, I think that all of you already know that we had a big boost between 23 and 24, that we have an increase of 6 times the investment that was done in 2023. And the tendency that we see is that this will continue to grow. Nevertheless, it's important to mention that in terms of quality and safety, it's one of the top priorities, that we see that the agents tests are having more troubles. And this is why it's important that we start small and then start to scale. Start with small experiences, even if it's just a chatbot that will collect information from one specific system that you have. Try to implement a little bit of chain of thought in that process. But we need to start very small and then scale afterwards. Strategic focus, it's that companies are really looking to specialized agentic solutions. So they are not searching for a generalized solution, but specific agent platforms that are specifically for a certain area. And what we see in terms of future outlook is that there is already an evolution in terms of the application layer, in terms of applications that will increase the capability of observability. And this, what it means that you need to be able to understand what it's all the loops and interactions that the agent is doing and so on. So this is something that we are already starting to see investment in this area. So we are also seeing that there is limited investment or improvement in terms of large language models with the increase of the parameters. So new kind of models will appear for sure. And there is also the evolution of agents with the computer usage capabilities. And this will be a big boost in terms of, let's say, dynamic workflows, because will allow, let's say, that the agents interact with the environment with more than just specific APIs and workflows defined. So in general, very fast, this is what we see in terms of autonomous agents at this stage and what the future can bring. And I finish now the presentation. Sorry, I miss a little bit the time, but I think that there were points that were important. So I don't know if we have time for a couple of questions at this stage.
Thank you so much, Pedro. And it was really a very insightful overview. Also one that really gives us a lot of things to think about in terms of the future. So yeah, very, very happy with this. And thanks for sharing your knowledge here. We do have time for a few last questions. So let me quickly put that on the screen before I move to the closure of today. So let's start with a very interesting question. How do you foresee the relationship between RPA AI agents and human oversight evolving in the next decade? And what should businesses prepare for? I think you answered it in the latter part of the presentation. It's a question from already 30 minutes ago. So maybe just a brief summary.
Yeah, so basically, my personal experience and what I see in terms of trend is that I see a lot of companies disinvesting in previous technologies, and I think this is a mistake. I think that the companies need to improve and continue to use technologies like RPA and workflow solutions, and then try to integrate, let's say, the agents with these solutions, like, for example, RPA, in order to create dynamic workflows and give more power to their actual workflows. Of course, all of these with human in the loop, because I think that it's important that we keep and we define certain triggers in order to give still the power of decision to the humans.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And again, that's a part that you already, I would say, covered in a lot of depth. I also have another interesting question. I'm going to put that on the screen, which is from James Ma. And he is asking, what kind of organizational culture is most conducive to adoption of intelligent automation 2.0?
That's a very interesting question and a good question. I think that, I see a lot of companies a little bit skeptical about some of the concepts that we talk here, right? But what for me it's important is that the enterprise should invest on the organization to make research on these kind of concepts, because the evolution is so fast in terms of research and in terms of capabilities, that if we don't make our organization test it, even if it's not giving reliable results for production, at least we are able to follow up the evolution of the technology, and we are able to adapt very fast in terms of the evolution and gaining experience in order that we can develop step by step our knowledge internally about this technology, because this will fly. I can tell you that this will fly sooner or later. Yeah?
Very good. Thanks so much for that. And then the last question for today is a question from Peter Wong. He says, "Hi Pedro, what are the financial implications of shifting from RPA to agentic intelligent automation, and how can organizations justify the cost of this transition?"
Okay, so this depends a lot in terms of what was the strategy defined for RPA technology, right? We see that there is a lot of companies with high costs in terms of RPA infrastructure, and once again, I don't think that they should dismiss all the work that was done. I think that RPA will still be useful for the next years, because let's be realistic. If we are expecting an agent to already execute in a reliable way, similar to RPA, to execute a certain task in our systems, let's be realistic. We are not yet there. We have already some models, and this is evoluting. The evolution is quite fast, but we are still not there. So the most, let's say, reliable solution that I saw in terms of agents with computer use was a 67% of accuracy on web browsing activities. So if we are talking about business process, we are still far away. So RPA will be always here, at least for the next years. So
Absolutely.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, absolutely, and I think that's a very good conclusion, because organizations that already have that in place are not going to discard that in order to move to that new transition model.
Correct. And I think that what the companies needs to do, and I'm talking, basically big companies, yeah, because we know that it's not a reality for all the companies. There is sometimes budget for innovation, and there is also budget for, let's say, for regular activities. Part of the budget of innovation should be, allocated to the study of agents and autonomous agents. That it's my perspective, and this is what some companies are doing at this stage.
Well, let's close with that, because I think putting some budgets from an innovation point of view will definitely help to make that happen.
Correct.
Good, Pedro. Before we say goodbye and close, I still have one last thing to do before I officially close for today. And note that throughout all the whole conferences, we have a few poll questions so that people can win prizes, books, free courses. So I'm going to end with a very quick poll that is our third out of the 5 questions for today. And the question is, which of the following countries in Asia has seen the highest growth rate in RPA adoption due to its expanding technology and finance sectors? And the countries you can choose from are India, Vietnam, South Korea, and Thailand. And you can cast your votes now in order to win some of these books and other learning materials that are made available by our partners. Good, and I think almost everyone has this correct. It is indeed India. Thanks so much for that. So with that, we are getting towards the end of our first day of Automation Days. And I think we've had a tremendously content-heavy day with a lot of new insights and a lot of new thoughts to really chew upon later tonight. I would like to thank Pedro for giving us a very, very insightful presentation on the Automation 2.0 framework. I personally liked it a lot, and I also really like the way that you've structured it. It's very clear and concise. I see around 100 claps at the moment, so that's very good. And for everyone else who is in the session tomorrow, we still have a full day program tomorrow. So I really look forward to seeing everyone again at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning for the second day of Automation Days Asia 2024. To whoever's joining from wherever in the world, have a great rest of your evening, day, or afternoon, and we will see each other again back tomorrow. Thanks, Pedro, for your very insightful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.